All right, welcome back to the ever popular Scottish Tournament of Hearts betting preview with Kris Abbott and Andrew Paterson, better known as Hustler. First thing, we got to point out the obvious here. I apologize for being backlit. I'm doing some we'll say renovations to the condo, so this is kind of my setup right now for the next week or so. But somehow, Hustler, you have permeated the curling bubble, and it appears that you are in Calgary at the Scotties. What's the word?
A bit of a time machine with all the fans in the background. But yes, you can't keep me away from the Scotties. It has been such an amazing week. Had so much fun. I thought I would try to bring some of the curling flavor of what we've been seeing in Calgary to our Coolbet Championship pool preview show. And been having some fun with the green screen. I thought it would be appropriate to get a good curling background as we get into our championship round discussion.
I absolutely love it. And I mean, before we get into what's going to start in a couple hours here, which is going to be a really exciting championship pool into the playoff weekend, quite the up and down round robin, wouldn't you say? What was your biggest takeaways from pool play?
Well, it was really interesting. And we talked about this last Friday in that, with the teams having not played for a long time, and we know who on paper were the best teams, but we didn't really know how the layoff would affect everybody and, who would be at an elite level and who might take a little bit of time to get into it. So took it a little easy on the first couple days, but, we did see a lot of chalk, a lot of the big favorites, and then the numbers of those favorites going up in a big way. But Kris, then over the next couple of days, we started seeing some upsets. I mean, usually one or two in almost every draw. There was always a parlay killer, and, almost no team was unscathed by this. I mean, we were speaking before we got going. Maybe the most noteworthy upset of the entire first week was Rachel Holman losing to Kerry Galusha in Northwest Territories. And that was a absolute parlay killer. I think there was I think you tweeted out the swing that was for the book compared to the players. But I will say this, a couple takeaways. Kerry Galusha, I thought, was phenomenal. When it came to playing as Skip, obviously as a team with the amount of people in Northwest Territories, they don't have the pool to put that in, but I mean, she was nails. And, to beat that team, you really needed to step up. And it was credit to Beth Peterson for the wildcard team. It went right down to that final end, and they were able to do it and move on. And I think they'll have some real momentum going to this round because that was a big, big win with so much on the line for a young team. But my betting MVP of the first round, without a doubt, hands down, we've talked so much about the youth and all the exciting young teams. Have some respect for sensational Sherry Anderson of Saskatchewan. This wily vet is, as a Manitoba guy, and with all the Manitoba teams, I should not be here gushing about a team from Saskatchewan. But I got to tell you, the moxie she showed, the shots that she pulled off, and from a betting standpoint, won with her as a plus money underdog. And as far as betting against the spread, I don't have the numbers, but I would be surprised if she wasn't the number one team when it came to, what do we call it, the rock line? It's right now. She was just phenomenal. And, credit to her for ruining a few of our Jen Jones to win Group B bets with the way that she played going in. And, of course, her big win over Jen Jones. So love the Anderson team. They've been a great story so far. And now, Kris, we are down to 8 amazing teams with so much on the line. And it's important to remember that everything that we've seen so far still counts. These wins and losses carry over. So, and I know we'll get into the odds a little bit later on for the overall tournament, but that will indicate why some of the teams that have 3 losses are such long shots, because they really will need to win the table and maybe get some help to be there in the playoff round going for the gold medal.
Yeah, I mean, who had sensational Sherry Anderson and Elsa herself, Laurie St. George out of Quebec? Who had both of those teams making the playoffs out of Pool B? Like Sherry Anderson's team, a plus 750 and 5th on the odds table. So the odds had them not even making it to the playoff round. They come back and win Pool B. I think we took a grand total of 0 bets on that number. And that's how unbelievable that accomplishment is. But we can't. I think you're right. The Northwest Territories team, Carrie Galusha, doing her best. Everybody get on my back. I'm going to drag you guys as far as I can. And then the team out of Quebec, they play a real high risk style, and I think it's going to catch up to them when they play more games against more experienced teams. But they will start with an opportunity as an underdog this afternoon against Laura Walker. But before we get into the lines for today, let's talk a bit about the recalculated futures odds here for the tournament that are going to be available until rocks start to fly again this afternoon. We've got Rachel Holman and her Ontario rink is a plus 150 favorite. Carrie Anderson's Team Canada right behind a plus 200. Jen Jones, who's gone on a run and has a 6-2 record coming into the playoffs, even though it didn't feel like she played like it, still 4-1. Sensational Sherry Anderson, same record as Manitoba. She's at 6-1, and then some longer odds. Do you have a new, futures pick coming into this championship round, or are you sticking with what you had to begin with?
Yeah, no, I have come around. I mean, we had talked, I was on Jen Jones for the tournament, and, it's funny, you do mention that, the Jones rink is 6-2 and they tied for the lead, but you're right. It really didn't seem like they were clicking on all gears. Now, the caveat, of course, is Jen Jones with the rock in her hand with the final shot can do things that really no curler has ever done. I mean, she has some of the greatest shots in the sport's history, so you cannot count her out. However, despite what happened yesterday afternoon in that highly anticipated matchup for Group A between Holman and Carrie Einerson, I really think the Einerson team and Team Canada is poised to run it back. I think top to bottom, they have played phenomenally at the start. Now, of course, it did lead up to the big game yesterday. It was a little bit disappointing for Carrie, but I think that chances are these teams are going to play again a little later on, and the margin of victory and difference, when you're playing with these top teams, can be literally a millimeter from something hitting or missing. I just really do think that the Einerson team is poised. Listen, they're going to have to beat Holman to do it. But I mean, even Holman at times has looked sort of up and down. To be honest, Kris, we've been through a week seeing all of these games and seeing the teams win. Obviously, everyone has a loss at some point. But you could pick out times where all of these teams looked like world beaters and other times where it looked like they hadn't played for 6 months. So all that being said, I do think it's going to come down to Holman and Carrie Einerson, and I think Einerson will get one back on Holman after she got that big win yesterday to win Group A and take first place.
And you talked about it all already a little bit. Now I'm going to take Rachel Holman at plus 150, and here's why. It's the chalk. Well, it's not chalk, but it's the favorite. And the reason that I'm going to take this is because what we talked about in carrying the losses forward. Right now, an unbelievable advantage for Holman and Einerson over the rest of the field in that they've only got one loss to this point. Whoever has the best overall record at the end of this championship round goes directly to the final. So you've got to think that either one of these teams at least one of them will be in the final, maybe both. But one of them is most likely to get that direct bye. And with that, if you're going to get either of those teams at that number in the championship final, I think you're best off to take them here. So that's where I'm kind of sitting with that one. But, the tournament thus far has been a little bit of a darling event. Is there anyone in your mind that can make, another Cinderella type run through this playoff round, even though they're already carrying 2 or 3 losses, and maybe we're getting good value on them in the futures market?
Well, I mean, the two teams at the bottom of I shouldn't say it. I mean, Alberta, I guess at 5-3 coming in has played, quite well at times. They had a couple disappointing losses. But the two teams that intrigue me the most are those 2 wildcard teams at the bottom when we're talking about the odds. The Peterson squad, which is the longest shot of them all at 19-1. I think they're sort of, after that win against Galusha to get into this championship round, I think they sort of are playing with house money. And I think they'll be a dangerous team. Listen, it's going to take a lot. They'll need to win all 3 games and get, maybe a little bit of help to even get to that point. But I do think they'll be dangerous and might upset a couple other teams. Now, the Fleury rink by pedigree would tell you that, maybe the odds are a little bit long on that. But again, it goes back to the 3 losses. If I'm, put me on for a long shot pick of that group, I'll go with the Fleury rink, and it comes down to Chelsea Carey. Now, she's been brilliant at times. She's missed some shots as well, much like we talked about, many of the teams throughout this tournament. But, as they continue to play, get more comfortable, she's been here. She's done that. She's won it twice already, and she's a skip that I think you can have a lot of confidence in making that big shot when you need it. Listen, the odds and the path to actually doing it is very, very long. I don't think we'll be seeing, a ton of action on these squads just because of the situation. But if I'm looking for a long shot, a team that could get hot, could win 3 games against elite competition to get to 8-3 and be in the mix, I'll go with Chelsea Carey skipping for Tracy Fleury of the wildcard team.
And there's one reason I won't make that pick, and that's because I think the teams crossing over from A to B are going to have a little bit of an easier schedule than the teams crossing over from B to A. I think I look at Laura Walker's Alberta rink, for example, coming in at 5-3, but they get to play Saskatchewan, they get to play Quebec. They will play Tracy Fleury, and they'll have to play Jen Jones, as opposed to the other teams that have to come over and play both Holman and Anderson going into that playoff round. So I feel like if there's a team from the bottom of that list that has a chance to jump up, it's going to be either Alberta or the wild card Peterson. And again, that goes back to me not trusting sensational Sherry Anderson or the upstarts out of Quebec. So again, maybe that's me not adjusting, or maybe that's me expecting things to shake out more like we thought we were going to see during the run of the week. So I think there's a little bit of value on those 2 third and fourth place teams coming out of Pool A, simply because they don't have to play Rachel Holman or Carrie Anderson again.
It's a great point. I mean, I guess at 6-1 and winning the group, I didn't really think of sensational Sherry as a long shot. I think she sort of deserves to be in that group, and they're 6-2. The Quebec team is interesting. I mean, I didn't know much about them coming in. They've been one of the great stories, really fun to watch. I mean, young enthusiasm, and I think they've just got a great attitude that, they, as I said, sort of playing with house money right now, like the Peterson rink. However, they're 6-2. I mean, they're 6-2. So, you think about the opportunities they have with one less loss than those other teams. Hey, if they take care of business, they'll be there on the weekend. So a lot to play for right now. The 10-1 on Quebec, I don't think they're a caliber of a team that could actually do it. But when you look at the situation and realize that, a 6-2 team has a far greater chance of doing something than a 5-3 team, those 2, Saskatchewan and, of course, Quebec, in a better situation to maybe be relevant as we get into Sunday.
And, of course, and that makes sense why then their odds are better than teams that maybe be judged to be better than them. But just, that one less loss is absolutely massive. All right, going into the draw 19 or draw 1 of the championship round, first thing I'll do is I'll run down, let's go game by game. We've got Laura Walker's Alberta rink, minus 204 favorite against Laurie St. George from Quebec, who's plus 115. Walker's minus 1.5 on the rock line, total 12.5, juice on the over. Looking at what's coming in at Coolbet right now, we've got about almost a 2-1 split on Alberta money line tickets, and we've got it's pretty close, almost 50-50 on the rock line. I think we've just made up this term, and I love it, by the way. Yeah. The rock line. That's it. Where do you fall on this game, and what will you be playing it as a single game, or what are you looking at?
Yeah, there's the odds. Yeah, I do like Alberta in this game. A minus 204 is maybe a little bit of more of odds than I thought, just because Quebec's at 6-2, but I think this does speak to people still maybe expecting the clock to strike midnight for a Cinderella team out of Quebec right now. And Laura Walker has played, very, very well. She had a great start. Wasn't really hot coming into this point, but I think this will be a great spot for her to, obviously if you're an Alberta fan, to hopefully get a win because they're of course going to need to run the table if they want to be around at the end of the match. I've had a lot of fun watching the Quebec team, and they've had a couple big upsets at big numbers. 6-1 underdog, I know one time earlier this time. But I think that the experience and just the quality of the Alberta team sets them apart. I'm on them on the money line. And we'll talk about this a little later on. Just going money line on that one, not touching the rock line, but we do have a couple of those picks for the other games.
Okay, one that we probably don't need to spend a lot of time on. Jennifer Jones, a massive favorite against the Paterson team, over 10 times the number of bets on Jones, is a massive 417, minus 417 favorite. Action is dead split on the 2.5 rock line in that game. So the book seems to have gotten that spread correct. Total is even juice on both sides of 12.5. Anything stand out to you in this one?
Well, I love Paterson on the rock line. And as I said, I wouldn't even be surprised, to be honest, if they actually did pull the upset. I mean, the Jones team, despite that record, Kris, has looked pretty vulnerable at times against, some teams that I don't think maybe are even the quality of the Paterson rink. And as I said, they're going to be coming in feeling like they have absolutely nothing to lose after that big win yesterday to qualify for this. My favorite bet of the afternoon, I think, is the plus 2.5 at minus 105. I think it's a great number, considering we've seen I've had some real good success on taking plus 1.5, plus 2.5 on games that we just figured would be close. And, Jen Jones has the pedigree, certainly has the named value. And I think that plays a little bit into this number because, to be honest, I think, we're going to talk about the next one where the Fleury team's minus 161. I was expecting those numbers to kind of be closer. That being said, I think there's a lot to like about this Paterson rink. They're going to be going up. I'm sure Jen Jones was a hero of the young girls from Manitoba. It'll be a chance of a lifetime. And they played well. She proved late in the game yesterday against Galusha she could make the big shot that she needs to hang around. I think this is going to be a close game. I love getting 2.5.
I really like the way the Jen Jones rink has come together. I mean, I think they win this game, but yeah, that spread, and there's a reason that, the odds are so good on both sides of it. I think it really could go either way, and those are the fun games. So maybe Jen Jones in a money line parlay is the safer way to play that game. And you alluded to it already, the Tracy Fleury, Rachel Holman game, obviously Chelsea Carey, the skip for Team Tracy Fleury. They've been up and down this week. The Holman team maybe has the advantage at front end in this one, and I think that's what makes them a minus 370 favorite. Of course, both of these skips have won this tournament, and they've always been around at the end. Is there anything that stands out to you in this game? A little juice on the under 12.5 here.
Well, what stands out to me is that rock line again, a plus 2.5. I kind of figured that this one might be 1.5. I mean, that's a big number going up against a skip on an elite team that's won 2 Scotties. Now, Rachel Holman, I sort of get it that the win against Einerson, although we didn't see a lot of it yesterday on the tube, was the matchup. And I think when everyone saw that result, thought, okay, the Holman team is in the driver's seat. And listen, they're obviously the favorite for a reason in this game. But to be a 2.5, for the line to be 2.5 against a team with the pedigree and the championships and what they've done so far this week, which at times has been very, very good. It was a no-brainer for me to be plus 2.5, even if it's minus 161.
Action on this game at Coolbet, about 5 times the number of money line bets on Rachel Holman, but over 2 times the amount of spread bets on the carry handicap. So exactly what you're saying there. Okay, last game of this draw, sensational Sherry Anderson is a 3-1 dog. Now this line has moved since it opened in favor of Team Canada, Carrie Anderson. This is another rock line. We've got a 2.5. Total is 12.5, juice about even on both sides. At Coolbet, an overwhelming money line favorite is Carrie Anderson with about 5 to 6 times the number of bets on the money line as Saskatchewan. When it comes to the rock line, there's twice the number of bets on Team Canada than there is on Saskatchewan. So the public certainly all over Carrie Anderson, but are the sharps on something with Team Anderson here, I wonder?
You know what, Kris? I'd looked at this number on a couple of ways, and at one point, I think overnight or maybe earlier on, it was actually at 1.5 and then moved back to 2.5 with different numbers. I stayed away from the game I thought that, betting Einerson on the money line, listen, I think that they're probably going to win. But I mean, Sherry has been nails, especially getting 1 or 2 points in these games. I actually kept this game off of my parlay, partly because I just couldn't bring myself to bet against Sherry after all she'd done for us through the first week of the season. But again, that was talking about a 1.5 number. I made it very well. I've got a parlay coming up, but just for people knows, I kept that game off. But I completely endorse plus 2.5 on Sensational Sherry on this game as well. Again, we could break down the numbers from all of the games, but I would bet you that the number one team when it comes to winning on the spread was the Saskatchewan squad. They've been awesome, and even in their losses have been real tight games.
All right, so that's a quick breakdown for Draw 19. You alluded to the Hustlers Hurry Hard Parlay, which I know you hit one yesterday that you tweeted out. What do we got to look forward to here this afternoon?
Yes, well, actually a nice little run there. Gave out a 3-gamer on the Lock Shop on Tuesday that came through. Came another one, and man, just narrowly missed making it 3 in a row. So we try to get back into the winning groove with Alberta money line minus 204 against Quebec, and those 2 rock lines that we talked about, Paterson plus 2.5 against Jen Jones at minus 105, and Fleury plus 2.5 at 161 against Holman. At this point, these teams are, they're the elite. They're in the championship round for a reason. And to be honest, I think in most cases, if I see a number that's 2.5, we will be taking the underdog. I mean, I think these games will be close. The underdogs are all capable of winning these games outright. And something like curling, nothing would shock me at this point with the quality of teams that are left around. So, to ask anybody to win by 3, I think is a real tough task. So I like Paterson, I like Fleury, and I probably will take that plus 372, bet it, and then add in my girl Sensational Sherry to try to get that up. As I said, it's minus 115 on plus 2.5. So, I mean, that would be a nice boost to that if you want to go for a 4-gamer and get a piece of all 4 games that'll be going on this afternoon.
Yeah, and I think you made a good argument to also, take Paterson as a straight bet at minus 105 plus 2.5. Take Sherry Anderson plus 2.5 minus 115. Those are definitely straight bets you can play as well. We can both win because my parlay is related, but not the same as yours. So I'm actually going to take a Jen Jones, Rachel Holman money line parlay, and I'm going to go cross sport. I'm bringing in the Los Angeles Kings to this one and making it a plus 153 Cowards parlay. Kings plus 1.5 tonight. They're on an absolute heater in the National Hockey League. They've allowed just 7 goals in their last 6 games with a couple of shutouts. So this is going to be my parlay for this afternoon. We already talked about the fact that we both believe Jen Jones, Rachel Holman to be in the driver's seat of their games today. I'm sure something will happen. The Kings could lose by 6. We could see a money line upset, but I'm gonna run with this Cowards parlay here this afternoon.
No, I love it. I mean, if we're talking just about the money lines, how can you go against Holman and Jones? And again, it unlike, even at the start of the tournament, you kind of think, oh, 1 loss, it's no big deal. A loss right now is, it won't kill Holman. It would be devastating for Jones, I think. With the quality of teams, I think there's a good chance, knowing that Einerson and Holman both come in with 1 loss. I mean, if they do the job, let's assume that they're going to be in that final 3. You're talking about everybody else battling for 1 spot, and to go from 2 losses to 3 would be devastating. So I think there's a real sense of urgency amongst those other teams, and hard to go against Holman and Jen Jones when we're just talking about who's winning the game. But as I said, I think the quality of curling and quality of curlers in the championship round will give us a lot of excellent close games. So for those big spreads, I'm taking the points.
No, absolutely. I think there's a sense of urgency for every team. Like, this is a real intriguing way to do this playoff round. 1 team gets a bye direct to the final. I mean, that's a huge carrot at the end of a grueling round robin. And I don't know if I like it or hate it yet, but it's certainly interesting and presents a unique wrinkle making every single game that much more important, right?
Yeah, listen, I'm all in on this format, and people that are more in tune with how the tournament was put together this year than me can probably speak to this. But just as a fan and someone that's been watching the action, I think that this expanded field has been an absolute home run. And, I know a big part of it was because of COVID and we weren't able to have those playdowns. But, this format with all the teams, you get every single province and territory represented. You have some other teams from incredibly talent-rich provinces that are still able to compete. And it sets up a championship round with 8 of the best teams around going at it. And unlike the page playoff where you go with the 1-2 game, you kind of have a game that, is really in a lot of ways just setting up for last rock in the final. Every single one of these games is really a playoff game right now. And the team that is the best in the full round robin playing everyone deservedly gets to the final, has the hammer, and has the best chance to do it. So I think it's been a home run. I would love to see an expanded field continue, although I know the history of the Scotties, it's all about winning your province and playing there. But man, from an entertainment perspective, I think from a television viewing perspective, as well as from Curling Canada being able to put forth the best teams overall, I think this has just been phenomenal. And man, we needed it with nothing else going on right now and people not able to attend these events.
Yeah, I think one of the things that this has given birth to, though, and I made the comment to some of my pals on the curling tour, is that we're going to need, even if it's a 1 or 2 camera webcast of the other sheets, because we're not getting the spotlight and there's too much happening. So that's the only one thing that I would say is next for the broadcasting. And of course, if you're betting, you certainly want to be able to watch all those. So I think some very, very interesting wrinkles coming out of this pandemic. Listen, it's been terrible for the world, but it's also caused a whole lot of innovation in a whole lot of different areas, not just sports, that are probably going to be advancements to our lives as we go forward. Speaking about the expanded field, we were working here at Coolbet on the lines, the futures for the Brier.
Yeah.
And there's a week off in between tournaments, so we'll have lots of time to prep for the Brier. But you talk about the teams getting in, the 3 wildcard teams in that event: Mike McEwen, Kevin Cooey, and Glenn Howard. Like 3 of the best teams to ever do it, and not provincial champions. So I think that's all the evidence you need right there.
Well, it speaks to the incredible talent in Canada, and how saturated a few provinces are of elite talent. And hey, if you want the Canadian Championship to truly represent the best of the sport, and it's listen, you want the teams from the territories and you want the teams from, some provinces that are smaller. It's a huge honor and it's great. You have to have everybody represented. But I mean, if we want to really determine who the best team in Canada is in either women's or men's, I think it is a real bonus to have the other elite teams that, might not be the best in their particular province on any given day, certainly are deserving of being in the conversation. So we'll be having this same talk in a week or so about the loaded Brier field. And, with those wild card teams, in addition to everybody else, just imagine what that championship round will be like a couple Fridays from now when we've gone through the round robin. I mean, it is the Scotties has been amazing, and I cannot wait to get going on the Brier as well.
Oh, it's going to be unbelievable. I just wish we had someone doing a live stream of the other sheets, because the updates we're getting on TV, not enough to satisfy my, you got your ticket and you're just waiting. You're refreshing the scores page. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
No, I have done more refreshing of the Curling Canada score page than maybe any sheet ever, because you're right. And especially, when you're putting together like a parlay with 3 games in the same draw, once in a while you'll sneak the side of the scoreboard depending on which side of the camera is. But they really have been focusing it. And then, a day like yesterday, I was absolutely stunned that the Holman Anderson game wasn't the feature game. I'm not sure whether those teams had just been on so much and they figured this is a do or die game, play in. So they went with Peterson Galusha. And I guess we will hopefully see Anderson and Holman play again later on down the road. But I was sort of stunned that, with what was on the line in that game and the pedigree of both of those clubs, it wasn't there. I would even take right now, Kris, if you've got golf bets going on and you're going on PGA Tour Live and it just sort of shows where the shots were, like just some sort of thing that you could just click on and it shows where the rocks are and what's going on for it. It would be much easier to follow and to give you an idea about where things are at, because you're right. There's been some nervous moments just waiting for an end score to update, not being able to see what's going on, and in some cases having a lot riding on it.
Well, we're getting, we've reached the half-hour mark again here, so we'll get ready to wrap this up. But I mean, from a sportsbook perspective, just being on the operator side, we've seen an unbelievable response to this event. It's been huge, and thank you to everyone out there who's chosen Coolbet to be your home for this. I think we've had a great offering, and betting on it myself, like it's been absolutely exhilarating. What's the feedback you've gotten from your community, especially Curling Crazy Manitoba, with the opportunity to place a few bets on this as well?
The feedback has been phenomenal. The amount of people that really didn't even know that these sort of offerings were out there have been fired up. I mean, I'm getting, even people that aren't bettors, when I've been putting out kind of, thoughts on games and lines, lots of action on social media, and a lot of people that have sort of dipped their foot into the waters and have some fun, with putting together some tickets for the curling right now. And I think they were sort of feeling it out through that first week. Now we've got these great matchups. I think we're going to see, more even odds, especially as we get closer to the playoff round. So, Kris, man, I think people are loving it. I think there's a lot of people that have come to Coolbet for the first time and are probably going to be around for a while. And really, we're just getting going, because as amazing as this weekend is and through the finals are, you mentioned Brier just around the corner, and with the teams that are in it, this could be one of the greatest Briers in Canadian history, just from a talent perspective. And I know those teams are ready to go. They've had a long time to wait and think about this opportunity.
Yeah, the opportunity to actually go to the Brier in Kingston last year. Most of these teams were there, if not all of them, as a matter of fact. At some point, I know the wild card structure was a little bit differently. So, especially all the top teams. So super excited for that. But man, right now the ladies have my full attention. It's been unbelievably exciting, and I'm certainly looking forward to the championship round. 2 draws a day before we get to the hardware on the weekend. He is Andrew Paterson, better known as Hustler. I am Kris Abbott, Coolbet Kris. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us this afternoon. It's afternoon now in Ontario anyway, this morning if you're west, and we'll do this again before too long. Thanks, everybody.
Good luck, everyone.